All right, I'm on here tonight to speak specifically to Gina Carano being right. I am ordering the Jewish community to stand behind her for these most recent statements because they are correct. America, in its extra zeal to compensate for its lack of sensitivity to racism, is always jumping and putting something forward as anti Semitic. And of course, this statement, as she made it, did not qualify. Now, of course, it seems like half the stuff she's been saying for the last 4 months, it seems like Disney's been very opportunistic, like while they were promoting the show, kind of holding back. And now that the show's been out for a little while and they got all the viewers they were going to get for it, now they take a stand and roll her off the show. Everything she said up until this pretty much has been way worse than this. Now, she did use the magical word of saying Jew, but it was part and parcel of the point she was making. And the point she was making is the tired point that liberals and conservatives make, which is we're on the march to Nazism. Black Lives Matter in the street. Hey, this is how socialism came to power in Nazi Germany. Universal health care. You know, you got a Hitler mustache out there on Obama. This is how the march to socialism, Hitler was the Socialist Party. This is the march to that. Same thing from the left. Hitler represents everything as an autocratic megalomaniac to the left that Hitler represented. And so it's overused to use that time frame as an analogy. But the reaction is like she said, we need to bring ovens back. Her point was the complete opposite. Her point was misguided in the fact of placing wealthy, enfranchised white people like herself and putting them in the same position as persecuted Jews in Nazi Germany. But she is right in the sense of that's where they're headed. And that is simply because the reason this country has no official religion, no official monarchy, and no official language, and no official race that's actually supposed to be on top, despite all the belly aching and the insurrections, is because it can be you. And that's what's happening right now. It can be you. You can be on the wrong end of cancel culture. For centuries, Black people were on the wrong end of cancel culture. What can't say the N-word? What can't say the N-word? You're saying it to a bunch of people who we're not allowed to read. We're not allowed to vote. That's rights. Use an offensive slur in the presence of a group because you'll offend them should not be on the top of your fucking bucket list. I mean, out of all the times people are always trying to dismiss the idea of white privilege, whining about saying the N-word is the height of white entitlement. That there should be no restrictions on any word you ever say. Well, we've lived with those restrictions for centuries, still live with a bunch of them. So, welcome to a fraction corner, almost tip of the iceberg of my life. But Gina Carano was right in her analogy. That this isolation, that it's internalized, that it starts right inside. Many of the Jewish community went to the camps voluntarily due to fake letters that were supposed to be from loved ones that told them, hey, come on in, the water's fine. The Holocaust, the final solution element, evolved the way slavery did for black people in this country, little by little. If it was just about extermination that day, well, this would be a brief story, and every other person wouldn't be a Holocaust survivor. They just drove you down there, bust, packed you in, lit the oven, the end, next load. But it wasn't. They worked and starved and everything else. And they were punished, they were abolished, they paid reparations. Now there's another group of survivors who worked their entire life, worked to death, beaten, brutalized, experienced a bunch of final solutions, death, burning, lynchings. But, that's not popular in this country, so that's to be dismissed. So you have to have this hyperbolic exaggeration to overcompensate when someone says Jew, to say, well, racism is, I don't know, not a real thing. So that's why we have to debate whether people who wanted to hold on to slavery and attack this country are heroes and patriots or not. No such debate in Germany. Because of America. Because America considered that dumb. That they would not leave any Hitler statues, that they would not be taking any military commanders from Nazi Germany and posting them up and idolizing them. They figured it out. The exact opposite attitude that they enforce here. So they left military bases named after Confederate generals and tore down any semblance of Germany's Confederacy. What an irony. So I know your guilt and your rage tells you to jump on the bandwagon and attack her for this, but her co-stars, half of them supported her, had no complaints about it. I don't hear of any difficulties and hostilities of working with her on a daily basis. Be careful. Just like feminism and anything else, be careful with the pendulum swing, because it can swing back. Just like they just learned getting rid of Obama and getting Trump in there, this pendulum swung back. And while you're in control of the lever and choosing who you want to cancel, and I don't want to be on here lecturing progressives about cancel culture when the people that are doing the whining have been controlling the buttons for centuries. Who could do what, who could say what, who could go where. I got plenty of stories from my ancestors who can tell you about limitations of so-called cancel culture, the real cancel culture, the back of the bus cancel culture, the no access to schools cancel culture. Not this I'm rich, enfranchised, white victim bullshit. So she's going to land on her feet, and that's not the point. The point is Al Franken. The point is everybody that's going over everything. They'll be out whining, and there were nowhere to be found for Isaiah Washington on Grey's Anatomy. They were nowhere to be found for Kathy Griffin. So let them worry about their hypocrisy. But you don't need to participate in this type of nonsense. Now, I know it was put out there by Disney, but they were also responding to pressure to fire her. For what? Believing the opposite of what you believe? I have plenty of friends, black and white, who completely believe in Trump, believe in what he was doing, believe Biden and this side of the ledger is the end of the world. And that seems to be the only thing America can agree on right now. If the other side is winning, the country, the world, the way of life, and the future is losing. And we have to take a beat and accept that. I can't imagine how any portion of this country believes that this radical racist, autocratic megalomaniac is the savior of anything besides his own ego. But they do. And they're back in their blue, but they only mean that as to it's easier to say than Black lives don't matter. Because when that blue got in the way from storming the Capitol, that blue ended up dead. So all the police that feel emboldened because they see those Blue Lives Matter sticker on these racist people's car, remember, they're just being racist. They don't obey the laws or give a shit about the law if it's in their way. So read what Gina was fired about. Don't read any headlines for abhorrent remarks, anti-Semitic remarks, or whatever else. Read the remarks. The remarks are accurate. She was trying, it seems to me, to say something profound and true. And to me, that was the least partisan thing I've almost heard from her in months. Now, when she crawled up on a cross and indulged in this idea that white people are up on, that it's been getting sold half of my lifetime by the Rush Limbaughs that are in its ilk of white victimhood, yes, that's the sole purpose of Fox News. Rich white guys telling other enfranchised white guys that 9/10 of the government and industry isn't run by white guys. That you may run all the industries, you may be most of the CEOs, but you're losing out to migrant Mexican farmers. And they believe it, and they're upset, and it's it's worse than racism. Reverse racism it's real. You're biting on the wrong one for Gina. Have a good night.